$100 worth, but
I'm on a budget.
It's 5:30. We ready?
I just knew. I just knew.
She's gonna have one
She's the
ticket.
only one that bought one.
Okay, we're gonna call this meeting to order. This is our first budget hearing,
Mike.
workshop of.
Mics, please.
2000 Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
We'll call the meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. 5:30 p.m. It is, it's not a good start, huh? This is our first budget workshop. It is Tuesday, July 25th. It is 5:30 p.m. And I'll ask Mrs. Wright to please call the roll.
Mayor Goodman,
I am here.
President Jones,
Here.
Vice President Robinson,
Here.
Councilmember Bullock,
Here.
Councilmember Cox, he's gonna be late, Councilmember Hines, she's running late, City Manager Terry Bavard, he's online, Attorney Kirsten Ballou, absent, Finance Director Stephen Bloom,
I'm here.
City Clerk Latricia Wright, I am here, and all other staff.
Here.
We have everybody tonight, even if everybody is anybody, and Ms. Hines just walked in the door. We appreciate Mr. Bloom coming down, or coming up, should I say. It's a long ride. We made it the other day when Latricia and I went to Hollywood. We went right by your office, and we said, whoa, what a long ride that is for
We don't know
Stephen
what
every
it
time
is.
he
I don't know
comes.
what mic it is.
We will stand at this time for the opening prayer and pledge of allegiance by the mayor.
Join me if you will. Lord, we come together as a community to look over how we can do our budget again this year. And Lord, I ask you to be with each of these counselors as they go through the details, give them clarity of thought and a clear idea of what they feel would be best for our city. I ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Play ball.
I always want to say that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, we're going to start with the presentation of PowerPoint slides from our Finance Director, Mr. Stephen Bloom. And again, thank you for coming.
Turned on. It's on. You got it.
I'm good? Can you hear me? Does it sound like it?
We can hear you.
Okay. So, welcome. This is your first workshop, first kind of kickoff of the 2024 budget process. Just kind of like we normally do, we start with the presentation, and as you can see, we have some other agenda items. But the presentation, the goal is to kind of give you an overview of what you have in front of you, talking about some of the increases, changes, different things for you to think about as you go through the entire budget process. Really today, obviously we're presenting the budget, and we want a lot of feedback and stuff, but before we leave, we need a consensus on the millage rate. That is a key point of this, and again, when we're setting this millage rate, it has to be set by August 4th, that's why we have to do it now, and it's a high watermark. It can't go up after you set it at this point. It can come down, and again, this is what's going to go into your trim notices. That's what goes out to the residents and everything, whatever we decide on today. So it's a key point, and as I mentioned, August 4th is the deadline. So next up, kind of the rest of the budget process, some key dates for you to think about. This is what we've got scheduled now. We don't have a second workshop scheduled yet. In the past, sometimes we have, sometimes we haven't. It's up to the kind of the will of the council as we go forward. But your first workshop your first public hearing is scheduled for September 12th. We schedule them for 5:30. The second one is scheduled for September 26th. And again, you'll have what amounts to 2 public hearings, 2 opportunities. At each of the public hearings, you have the opportunity to make changes. After the first public hearing is advertised on the trim notice, And then after that, you will advertise again with an entire budget summary that will go out, and that'll be in advance of the second public hearing. And then from there, you know, we've got a bunch of paperwork that has to be finalized, and that's how your budget process will go. Okay, so always try to put together a very comprehensive book for you, each of the departments, each of the funds. This kind of gives you a breakdown of where everything is. You know, again, I think we all talked about the different funds each year. We have some property tax review in there, and we'll have some more stuff about that in a second. The one thing I do want to remind everyone is that there are certain departments within the general fund that are allocated across other funds. And so I put those extra pages in the back of your book, just as a reminder. The reason why we did this is before we did this, like for city manager was one of those departments. In the past, the city manager was allocated everywhere. It's one of those positions, it's a key position. And then obviously at that point, no one really knew what the total costs were. It was always, well, you gotta go here, you gotta add up this, this, and this, you know, you turn around and do this. And so we wanted to show it all in one spot and then show the allocation separate. It's all in the general fund, IT, HR, city manager, city clerk, purchasing. They're all out in the back there. They show you exactly how it's allocated, both the total and how it's allocated. It's just, and it's already included in your budget. Okay, so now let's kind of talk about kind of an overview, some of the assumption used. The budget that you have in front of you is balanced, and I want to be careful how I say that. It's balanced in the sense that revenues does equal expenses, okay? But one thing to keep in mind as you're going through it, it's not balanced in the sense that you are having to transfer money from the utility fund to, you know, cover a shortfall in the general fund, and then you are also having to do that for CalLink to cover that. And again, we can talk about that and go through that in more detail. But you know, in essence, it has to be balanced. It has to equal, but I don't want to give anyone the impression that there isn't a transfer being done, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that amount looks like, but that is a part of it. So, staffing plan, there's quite a few pages that were provided on the staffing plan. It's, you know, page 6 in your budget book. There's a couple of additional handouts to kind of take a look at kind of a trend of where the salaries for each of the positions, you know, current positions, current staff, you know, for, I think I did 2021, 2022, current year, and then the proposed. And obviously, proposed is what we're budgeting, but it would just kind of give you an idea as to how it got there for some of these positions. Overall, you got a net increase of about 2 positions, and again, that means that there are positions that are coming off, and then there are positions that are being converted. We had a couple where there were 2 part-times were converted to 1 full-time. But in essence, it's a net of 2. Within that number, though, there are 5 new positions added, and I've listed those out. IT technician, admin assistant for fire department, lineman A, groundman, and a lift station technician. The last 3 obviously being in your utility fund, fire department and fire, and then the IT technician is in CalLink. And you kind of talked about that a little bit at the last meeting, and this is just kind of, it's in there now. Payroll cost year over year is an increase of about 1.37 million. I've got a separate slide to kind of break that down. Obviously, that's worth breaking down a little bit more. But keep in mind that that's not just salaries and wages going up. Pension, FRS, health and workers' comp, those are big numbers in there. And like I said, there is a slide we'll go through that. And then, as I mentioned, there are some additional pages in the book that show you the adjustments by position. What's different, a little bit different this year, as you go through the staffing plan and you kind of look at the current year and then look at the proposed, there were several departments that elected to do a little bit different on how they budgeted for their kind of merits for next year. Instead of it being position by position, they elected to have kind of a pool of money so they could make some different merit adjustments, and I'll let them kind of go through that. But I didn't want anybody to be confused by, you know, some departments like, oh, well, there it is clearly, and then you start to go to bottom of the section, like what's going on here. It is pulled in those particular departments. It's called payroll adjustments, and that's it. Kind of their all-in number, everything, including benefits.
I saw the payroll adjustment, but I had no idea what it was.
Yep.
It would have been nice to know that, sort of. That helps a lot. And I saw that some people didn't have raises, so that's understandable now too.
Okay, so kind of continuing on the assumptions, and here's where you can start to see some of why your payroll is going up. So from the general employee pension, this year it's 1%, and as you remember when we talked about this in the last workshop, fiscal year 2023 was a break. We knew it was going to go up. We knew it was a one-time deal. We didn't know how much it would go up, but we knew that it was going to probably go up significantly from 1%. So from the general pension, it's at 7.27%. Police is going from the 2% to 21.61%. FRS is going from 27, almost 28%, up to almost 33%. Okay, so those are some big numbers. In addition to that, some of your invoices for insurance, your premiums, we don't have those just yet. They're just starting the process, and obviously we can't wait. And so we put in a contingency. Hopefully it's a high contingency. We hope so, but it is there with the intention that we don't want the budget to be short later on as we get into September, when it's a much more difficult process to start finding money and making cuts. So there's about 15% in there increase in health and life, 40% on workers' comp, and then 60% in your GL, property and auto. And we know property at the minimum has been discussed is going through the roof. So I don't think that those numbers there are estimates or going to wind up being overshooting. I think that's unfortunately where it's going to be. The transfer from the utility fund in this particular version is 1.5 million. Again, the current year it is 1.1. So that is a $400,000 difference, and that difference is required to balance or the general fund. Without it, obviously, there would be a big hole in there. Overall, through the budget, and again, we can talk about this on an individual basis, but overall, I always want to kind of tell you where your cash reserves are going to be spent, and you can see, general fund is not too bad this year. For next year, about 63,000. Overall, it's a little bit under $1 million, 913,000 across the board. Most of that is the CRA fund. When we talk about the CRA fund, there really isn't a savings approach to the CRA fund. The intention is whatever comes in is supposed to be spent on projects. So everything gets budgeted the next year. So that's most of that 913. 513 of that is just the CRA by itself. The rest of the funds, it's really not too bad. The utility fund has got about 228,000 for a couple of vehicles that, they're in this year's budget, but I carried them forward because they just won't be arriving yet. The general fund is a couple things in terms of matching grants, so that's not too bad either. And then the airport, which had the additional timber sales, is using some of that for furniture. Again, that was a line item that was in this year's budget that's also being carried forward, so that's not new either. So overall, the cash reserves is not too bad in terms of what we're looking at for next year. New loans. This year we have in there about 250 for the consoles. That is being carried forward as well, and that would be funded with a loan. There is a fire vehicle that's also in the budget, and that also would be funded with the loan, assuming no grants come through for it. What's interesting about the fire vehicle itself is you actually just had one of their last loans paid off. So one goes off and one will come back on. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, kind of finishing this kind of the assumptions up a little bit here. The CalLink budget obviously is included. It's about 104,000 to fund that, and I'll let Aaron kind of talk a little bit more about that. I've already mentioned the shared cost pages that are in the back. In terms of the airport fuel sales, there's about a 2% increase over it. We always try to be very conservative with that particular number. Again, and a lot of times you'll see with my budget amendments, I am conservative, that's why I have to bring you a budget amendment. But I never mind bringing you that when it's much better in terms of that. Overall capital spending, about $7.5 million in your entire budget, but $6.2 million of that is the airport, and that's funded with grants. Let's see, millage rate, I'm using the same millage rate as your current budget, 6.75. And then what's highlighted there, and which is just so important to keep in mind as you're going through this budget does not work. I'll repeat that, this does not work without the increases in the rates. And you can see that across the board, it's all built in there based on all the rate studies that were already provided and reviewed. It's about $2.1 million in terms of the big picture between electric, gas, water, and sewer. And it's highlighted for a very good reason, because like I said, the budget does not work without that. Okay, this is kind of, again, some of these I'll go through a little bit more than others. Some of these charts are there for references as we talk. I can say, okay, let's go back to that. But again, this takes a look, and you can see it's a 5-year trend. Looking at your budget back in 2020, your entire budget across the board was 12.4. Next year, you're looking at about 24.5, which is a year over year from 2023, about 3.2 million. And then I've broken it down by the different services. So we're talking $3.2 million of that. 1.4 is payroll and benefit related. Operating is really not, the 6.3 is really not that bad. Debt service, we've got some additional debt service, for the CRA that's built into this, so that's explainable. Capital purchases is a little bit under 600,000. Again, we can go through that. So really, again, it's when you start to say, okay, where do I need to put a lot of my energy? The big piece is going to be making sure you're comfortable with the payroll related stuff. And with that in mind, the next slide is what I promised, kind of a breakdown of that number. So, kind of taking a look at, this is budget over budget. Where is that number is? So, we got new positions, about 220,000. That's not the biggest number. Salary adjustments is under $500,000. Now you get to some of the things that you don't have quite as much control over. Life and health, $186,000. Workers' comp, 33. Payroll taxes, you have zero control over that in terms of once you put in the salaries. Overtime, and then retirement is another big number, $360,000 year over year. Assuming everything else, that would be the change. So this kind of gives you the breakdown as you're looking at it, and you can kind of circle some of the ones that obviously you can focus on, and then some of the others, you just payroll taxes, workers' comp. And the hope is, like I said, like with life and health, again, that's $186,000. The hope is, okay, we put in a 15%. You're gonna hope it's like 8. We've had that for several years, 8 to 10%, and then that number can either come out, that differential, it can go into a contingency, can go into future reserves, which is an important part, kind of moving forward in these matters. So, any questions on this? I mean, obviously you'll have your other departments and managers and different things. It's a big number, and I wanted to make sure I had something to kind of show you the roadmap to that. Okay. Here's a look at your capital projects I mentioned. Again, airport, is about $6.2 million. Even within that, there are projects budgeted for the airport this year, and just timing or all kinds of other things. Those projects will be completed, so I carried over those balances into next year. Don't want that to get lost in the translation. So that's about $2 million of the 6.2. Again, CRA is about 557,000. They may or may not use that all in one year, but it's kind of has to be pushed through in the budget. And then from there you can kind of see some of the other It's really not a whole lot of projects right now. There's not a whole lot of vehicles or anything. We got public police. I mentioned the fire. We talked about the communication consoles before. On the utility side, again, 2 of those 3 are carried forward, and again, same thing. I don't want them to get kind of lost. The squirt truck is in this year's budget. The utility truck is in this year's budget. The new one is the spray fields at 50,000. That's kind of where your total is. Okay, so from property taxes, so your taxable values, which again, taxable values is the basis that you take your taxable values, you use your millage rate, and that's kind of how they calculate your property taxes. So you can keep the same millage rate as this year and still get an increase because your taxable values went up by about, I think I said about 12% in here. So, you know, it's what's in the budget. This budget is based on using the 6.75, and there's about $106,000 that is already in your budget that showcases kind of what that increase looks like based on the increase in the taxable values. Now, when you look at the chart there, you can see your millage rate has been very consistent over time there. I mean, there obviously is a couple little bump ups, and you kind of, this is going all the way back to 2002 and 2003, where, you know, it was pretty low back then. But, you know, the taxable values have been doing, you know, modestly moving up, but the millage rate has been staying pretty level. And, you know, it's kind of a part of the general fund, and that's also why the transfer has been increasing over time. And I probably should put that as another line in here to show you how that works, but because you're keeping the millage rate level, you're having to use the transfer to kind of cover the differential. I always put in here kind of a millage rate options, just in case anybody is interested. Again, 6.75 is what your budget's built on. That is $106,000. But the question will always come up was, okay, what if we were to go up? What does that really mean? So, for example, if you were to say, okay, I want to do a millage rate of 7, that is $143,000. That is not a ton of money just by going up from 6.25. You're going from 106,000 to 143,000. If you were to say, okay, 7.25, that would be 180,000. So basically, you know, again, millage, that's a pretty big bump in the millage, and you're only going to be getting out of that, you know, about $74,000. It's not a whole lot, which is kind of some part of the discussion has been in the past, but I always want to give you some perspective in terms of the options when you're doing this. Now the rollback rate, for those of you who are not familiar with that concept, the rollback rate looks at your current taxable values and says, what would the millage rate be if I didn't change it? If I only received the same amount that I got in the current year, next year, what would that millage rate be? And in this scenario, it's 6.1194. You're literally in this scenario rolling back the millage rate. That's where that comes from, down to a lower number. Again, it would, if you were to do that, it would put a hole in your general fund that you'd have to figure out. And another kind of constant we do every year, we look at it and say, okay, what does a change in the millage rate look like? Meaning, if we keep it at 6.75 mils, and the property has $100,000 assessed value. After you back out the exemptions, your taxable value is $50,000. That gets divided by 1,000, and then multiplied by the millage rate. And so the property taxes, and again, that's an annual number, would be $337.50. More the purpose of this particular chart is to show you, okay, what does that look like going up by every 0.25 mils? And again, this is kind of in the past where we talked about the pizza. We've always made that analogy, but it's about $12.50 annually to go from every 0.25, and you can kind of see that. Obviously, you're going from 6.75 to 7.5. You know, you're basically free of that at $37 roughly. So again, this is just for discussion purposes only. Okay, so the next slide on here takes a look at your reserves. And you normally hear this during budget season. You normally hear it when the auditor comes, and you'll hear it again when the auditor comes. Basically, the goal is always to have a operating reserve for each of the funds of about 3 months worth of your operating expenses, give or take, just kind of an estimate. And this really should not be any surprise that the general fund is under that goal. So I estimated about $700,000 for the general fund, and you probably want to have about $1 million, so about $300,000 short there. Utility fund, while you're doing good in terms of meeting the minimum operating requirements, you're falling far short on where you want for capital. And that's, again, we talked about the operating piece for the rates increases, but there certainly is absolutely a capital component to why we're doing that. And again, you know, you can see your reserves. If you were to see this chart, the same chart, because I do this every year, 2 or 3 years ago, your current reserve was at that point about $4 million. So again, every year we've kind of used a little bit of it. The last 2 years we've used quite a bit, and that's why the budget you have in front of you, I am using just the basics, the bare minimum, because you just don't have any more to use. And again, that's sound like a broken record. That's why the rates are so important to adjust those, because you've got to start building back in your reserves. We've been doing the rubber band approach to budgeting for many years. I always use that analogy. Stretching and stretching, using a little bit of the cash reserves, trying to put a little bit back in, but we're kind of past that now. So that's why this slide is always up there, just to kind of make sure I mention that. And even within this 2.2 or the 2.5, some of that is already what we call encumbered for purchases, where, you know, when you get an agenda item that says, where are you spending that from? And they say, well, cash reserves, well, that's where I got to then take that and encumber it. So, you know, it's not like you have 2.5 of cash money you can use. Some of that, like we said, the squirt truck, some other different things, ARPA money, and there's different things that's encumbered. So if there's an area that needs to be improved, it's definitely the reserves. Okay, that's very top level. Took you through quite a bit on your budget. Certainly, you know, can answer any questions now on that, because you know you've got some department managers eager to share some stuff with you, but I always like to go through the top level.
Any questions for Stephen? Or any comments anybody would like to make before we get started? I'm talking about council members. Anything you'd like to say before we get started?
Is that council or just?
Yes, just council at this point.
That's Terry, he's on now.
Oh, that's Terry. Terry, if you got something you would like to say, please do.
Okay, yes, if this is an opportunity time, everybody can hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. First, I want to thank you for providing me the opportunity to phone in. I would love to be there, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to. I would just like to, Stephen did a really great job of presenting the overview of what the budget looks like. I wanted to give you what my charge was to staff as we move forward in developing the budget for this year. The main goal that I had moving forward was that as a bare minimum, all of the enterprise funds, as a general, had to, at the very least, break even. In other words, it could not lose money for the year. So far, I think we have met that challenge in the sense of where our rate increases are coming. I know that we had some concerns about gas that I know that they were looking at to try to figure out the numbers, but I know that they had met that challenge. We also knew, just as Stephen said, the assumptions coming in, that we had some serious backfill issues in the area of the ARPA funds and the pension increases, as Stephen stated, our insurance, and then, of course, our main concerns in our reserves are our cash flows and then the reserves and the audit. As Stephen did state, I have some very serious concerns about where we are in the reserves and where we'll be moving forward as we continue to transfer these type of monies out into each budget. My question to Stephen was, and I saw some numbers here, the 2.5 million and where we needed to be, is that on this current budget, and maybe Stephen can tell me when I get done, even if we do this one transfer, will we be above the minimum general practice of what's acceptable for the reserves when it comes to an audit, which is a big concern of mine. I clearly understand as a city manager that there are things that we need to do and there's positions that need to be increased, but I also have to be concerned about the overall health of the budget in the city. So with that said, Stephen, I think my one question we have before we go forward, that 2.5 million or the 2.2 was on the last slide. With this being the balanced budget with the transfer 1.5 million, is that going to keep me at the 2.2 or the 2.5, or are we going to be even below that?
So the 1.5 is not going to come out of cash reserves. That is coming out of the additional utility billing, the rate increases. So that won't change that. So your utility fund will be okay. Again, the general fund, you'll get, the auditors will mention the same thing. You've got to eventually get that back up. With the idea that that's just not something that you just pop up $300,000 in the general fund. Now, the good news is that for the last couple of years, the general fund, in terms of the final numbers, has been doing a little bit better. It's not. We had several years in a row where you were losing money every year. Last year, you actually made a little bit in the general fund and kind of added to it a little bit. So I think as long as you are moving forward, starting to build in sinking funds, which is what the staff, when you start looking through your report there, you'll see more and more sinking funds, and that's code for future reserves. So you'll start to see that more and more, and that's built into the rates, and that is the intention, that you get all of that revenue in, and then a piece of it is going to go back into this estimated reserve to get that increased. Now, I don't think you'll be able to do it in 1 year, but that's the general fund will be the one, that 300,000 that you would want to start to get that gap closer. I mean, if you're estimating 700,000 each year, the goal would hopefully be to put another 25 in, to kind of build that up over time.
All right, very good, thank you. Madam President, that's all I have for an opening statement. That was the one question I do have. I do want to thank you for the opportunity to participate from home, and I look forward to the rest of the meeting.
We're glad to have you. Can't do it without you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're feeling better. All right, any questions or comments for City Manager Brevard before we move forward?
I'll leave you on, Terry, so just unmute if you need to speak
Okay.
up.
Thank you, Aaron.
The next section is called Budget Introductions by Department, and it actually starts with the Police Department. Let me see here. That's not exactly the way our book flows, but if we want to do it that way, is everybody okay with doing that? Starting with the Police Department? Or you want to do it the way the book flows? You really want to jump around? You don't want to jump around? It doesn't matter. Okay. I know there is a staffing plan section. I guess we can refer to that as we go. There's a property tax revenue section. We pretty much covered that in Stephen's slides. And the general fund does include the police department. So I guess we could turn to that section. I usually would start with the city manager.
I think it's page 14. 31.
Page 8 is your starting point.
Yeah, page 8.
Because we've got to cover those sections as we go too. Let me see, hold on a second.
No,
I guess we can jump to the police department if you want to. That's not the way I would normally do it. That's the way our agenda reads. Okay, so it is page 31 in your book, under the general fund tab. Okay, Chief, you're on. if you'd like to make a statement before we begin asking questions.
Sure.
I'm gonna find my staffing page while I'm at it.
Am I on? There, can you hear me? Hello?
I do not hear you.
Hello?
Well, where you at?
Hello?
I gotta find you here.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, I got
Madam President, Council, thank you for the opportunity to present the proposed budget for the police department today. I'd like to start, if you don't mind, by giving a quick overview of the police department. Currently, we have 12 officers, 5 reserve officers, 5 dispatchers. We have 1 open position on the officer side, law enforcement side, and 1 open position in the dispatch. That 1 opening that we have on the law enforcement side will be filled here shortly. Our new lady completed her polygraph test yesterday, and we'll be moving forward with her, so we're very excited about that. We're currently still looking for a dispatcher. Both of those are very, very hard positions to fill due to the current state of and people looking for law enforcement and dispatcher are people right now. So, but we are working on that. So we'll be excited to get her in. We have a total of 23 people, including law enforcement and dispatch, with 1 opening that work for the police department at this current time. Any questions on that so far?
Any questions for the chief on staffing, on the level of staffing? Okay, hearing none, go ahead.
Okay, if you don't mind, next I'd like to move to the line items and go over the few changes that was made to some of the line items. The first one being that Stephen spoke earlier about salary and wages. There's going to be a change there if council approves.
Page 14. You got it.
Okay, all right. If you move down on the operating expenses, under investigations, there was an increase there of $500. That is largely due to, as you all know, we've had 2 homicides this year, and a lot of the stuff that we need to purchase to assist us with investigating those types of crimes, burglaries, car thefts, or whatever. The equipment we need comes from out of there, and there are some equipment needs that we need. So there was a small increase in that under investigations. The other thing on the operation expenses was there was an increase in repair and maintenance. Small increase, I think it went up $1,000. That's for our equipment, radios, in-car cameras, different things that we utilize to do our job. So as you all know, that the price of everything is skyrocketing. So what we used to be able to get things fixed for is no longer. And our great, wonderful building maintenance. There's a $2,000 increase in building maintenance, and I'll give you an example of some of the things in our building maintenance. We have a holding cell back in our department, and there's a need to replace the stainless steel toilet seat in that holding cell. And that seat itself was $3,600 for a toilet seat. The whole toilet. And that's not including installing it. So, as the building gets older and things start to disintegrate and break, we're going to have to replace those things. So, that was the reason for the increase in building maintenance. And on that page, that was all. On the next page, our vehicle fuel, there was a $5,000 increase in our vehicle fuel. As you all know, our fuel cost is starting to rise again. So I don't want to fall short next year with vehicle fuel, as you know, calls for service are increasing, and it's going to take more time of the guys and girls riding and patrolling the streets. So we're going to use more fuel. So there's a small increase in that of $5,000. We may need it and we may not, depending on what the gas prices do throughout the year. On the law enforcement side, on the capital outlay, once again, it's the USDA grant is where we get our vehicles from, which is a great savings to the city because otherwise having to fork out money to purchase vehicles, they're purchased through our grant programs, and it saves the city a lot of money by doing that. And that's it for the law enforcement side. Anything on that? Any questions?
Do we have a question on anything that he has said?
Am I still on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was just, because, you know, at the end of the budget, Chief, we go back to the end of the budget and we get to the part where, you know, we're starting to do the pass and everything for next year. I always go back and look at the staffing plans. And I say you have an open position. And I show the open position as the deputy chief's position.
Yes.
Is that the one you're gonna make a police officer or what?
Thank you for bringing that up. I missed that. Yes. We're hiring a new police officer out of that deputy chief's position. We're not going.
Okay, 'cause
Go ahead. I'm
that's
sorry.
gonna be the young lady you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good, sir. I got it. Thank you.
Okay.
I can tell you that was one of my questions as well. I saw that open position and I thought that we had filled it with a new officer. It is showing the current rate for the deputy chief.
And the reason we left that current rate in there is, as we move throughout the year and as we move throughout the year and we have promotions that go on, whether the officers go from a slicks lead to a PFC to a corporal to a sergeant, lieutenant, whatever, what have you, those extra funds we can use to kind of offset some of that cost instead of increasing everything else. So that was one of the things that we looked at of doing that, and also we looked at using some of that money. Stephen, you can help me on this. I think we talked about it. I forgot the name of it now.
I know we divided it up this year. We used it for a couple of different things.
Yes.
For those things you're talking about, the promotions, and also
Yes,
we
ma'am.
used part of it for a car.
Yes, ma'am.
If your starting position, and it looks to me like I've got this about right, 46,438 will be your starting position for a new officer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we can cut $30,000 off of that if we leave it at that. And even if you make it 50,000, you're still saving 20,000 in your budget. And still have room.
You have benefits and.
And plus all the multiple benefits, that's right. The benefit amounts, especially the retirement, with the FRS would go down a lot. And I can tell you, other than that, that was really the only comment I had in your budget. That, and when I see the new dispatch position, is it or is it not part-time?
It's full-time. We took the two part-times and combined them together to
Okay.
make one full-time.
Well, it says part-time on here, but it shows 2,080 hours, so I just saw that, so we just need to fix it.
Yep.
So the dollar amount's probably still right,
Correct.
because it said 2,080. So we just need to fix the fact that it's full-time. Okay? Anybody else have a question on the staffing plan? Ms. Hines?
So you really only have one open position for an officer instead of three? I'm still not close enough.
Gotta pull it right on top of it. See how I'm sitting on top of it here?
So you don't have 3 open positions for reserve patrol, or is that something totally different?
No, I do.
Those are reserves.
Yeah, those are reserves. Those are reserve officers. And those positions are actually occupied, it's just the names are not in the book. So it shows that there's, I think I talked to Stephen about this the other day, it shows that there's 3 openings, but there really isn't 3 openings.
Okay.
Yes.
Up until last year, we didn't pay our reserves when they worked. We didn't pay them. And we've just started paying them, and we're paying them the minimum, which is wonderful. Makes it a whole lot easier to get a reserve.
As you can see,
Yeah.
4th of July, they all showed up.
If you're full, that's a great thing.
So-
Because before we had a hard time getting any. I think we had 1. And now it appears that we have 5. Or 4. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a good thing. So, looking at the staffing plan and also the expenditures, anybody have any specific questions for the police chief?
Get another quote on that toilet.
Yeah.
We have. Yeah, right?
He's looking for a job with the Department of Defense.
Is that where it comes from?
We've actually called other agencies that have jails to see if they have it.
Have a spare. Huh?
Yeah, but the problem is you gotta make sure that it will fit, where you don't have to come and bust out the wall, the floor,
Right.
and all those different things, so, our hands are kinda against the wall with that.
Okay, so how do y'all feel about the deputy chief position? Let's have some consensus on that. It currently has $71,000 sitting there and benefits of $33,000. Now, it's gonna be an officer that has a starting pay of about $46,500. So we'll have probably half that benefits, or at least 3/4.
Steven, can you give me some numbers on that? You knew I was gonna put you on the spot.
He can give you a look.
Yeah, I can just calculate what the number is.
You get a little bit closer to the mic, please, Stephen.
They can't hear it.
You can't hear me.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Oh, you did hear it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We wanna make sure that city manager can hear you.
So that difference is about $38,000.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm willing to give up 15.
That's a lot of promotions.
Well, we're at that stage where our officers are starting to reach those points where they qualify for that next step. So we may have 2 or 3 coming up here real soon that we're going to have to. I mean, we can't.
We have all chiefs and no engines, right?
No, that's why I didn't replace the deputy chief.
Yeah.
So I can have some Indians.
All right, gotta have some Indians.
That's right. That's right.
All right, so
When you say real soon, does that mean in the next year?
For what?
Promotion?
Oh yes.
We're going over dispatch.
I'm going there next.
Okay.
yeah, we got a communication.
Yeah, we're going there next.
So question,
Yes, ma'am.
the raises are already built into this
Yeah.
whole
Yes.
scenario?
Yes.
The promotions aren't, unless we use that money that's still sitting there.
Right.
That's why he wants to leave part of it. And do we need to put that in a different category? Do we need to call it something else?
Yeah, what I could do is take it out of that position,
Yep.
and then, again, put a line called payroll adjustments, depending upon what,
Yeah.
what you feel comfortable putting in.
I would feel more comfortable doing that and putting the new police officer position in here with his base salary. So we can actually see what that officer will cost us.
So you just wanna leave 15 for the promotions, right?
That's what it said.
Yes. Sure. I'm a team player.
Okay.
Works good. All right. Anything else on the police department?
Communications.
I gotta find my agenda. Communications next on the agenda.
Well, communications falls under the police department. I just want to go over it really quick.
We might as well do it now.
Yep.
Okay, so the next page is police communications. Page 33 of the book, thank you, Mr. Robinson. And if you flip over in your staffing plan, I don't know where it's gonna be. Oh, it's in the same place. It's right under the police department.
Yep.
Okay,
This is where it gets interesting. There was a couple changes, of course. Once again, salary and wages being one. And repair and maintenance went from $750 to $1,000. That was it for that, other than the capital outlay of the new dispatch consoles, which is a unfunded mandate that we have to comply with. We've talked about it with Stephen. I think it's the understanding that That will be a loan. Is that correct, Stephen? Am I speaking correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. That will be a loan process that we would have to go after to meet that. If you look back, the capital outlay last year for those consoles was $400,000. But if you look this year currently, we met with the company of the consoles and we're down to 250.
I like it.
Yes. But I would request that when we apply for the loan, we apply for 300,000, just in case there's some unforeseen things that pop up that we are not aware of.
You have to install it too.
Yes.
And
So
get it set up.
I would request that we do that at 300,000 instead of 250.
If we're gonna do that, then I want permission to increase this line to 300,000 as well. Again, it's gonna line up with the loan, but
Oh,
just
yeah.
so that we're not.
Okay. Makes sense to me. All right, anything else to point out?
And that's it on communications.
Any questions on police communications? Yes, sir.
Police chief roles, how many dispatchers you got now?
5.
5?
Yes. And just to add, we are looking at trying to find grants to try to help with these consoles or even to fund them. But so far, right now, we put in for a VEST grant and some other grants, and they're just pending. And I don't know if they're pending because they're waiting on something else to go through or whatever. So, but we'll keep seeking, trying to find grants. I think Laura actually sent us a couple places to look also to try to get grants to cover that cost. Hopefully we can do that and we won't have to have the loan. So.
Anything else, Mr. Collins?
When's your timeline for that you want to do the consoles?
Well, it's not my timeline. It's the mandate, and I think we're 18 months out.
For what, budget end of the year, right?
No,
It's in this budget cycle.
Yes,
in
it's
the
probably in this
incoming
budget
It'll be
cycle.
in the next year's budget cycle.
It's really dependent on the county, the sheriff's office getting their system in place, because that's what this is. We're joining their radio network, so to speak. And they're telling us the end of next year, probably.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah,
microphone.
loud enough.
Mike, sir.
Can you hear me now?
But
Yeah, we're looking at.
fair enough, touche. But that's what the timeline is, probably end of the year, end of next year. But it could be sooner, it
As
could
in
be
the
later, we
end
really
of
don't know.
2023?
No.
No, end of 24
Well,
probably.
then we probably could leave it 250 if we're not gonna need a loan till the next year. Unless we have to pay
No,
for
it's
it
in
in
this
advance.
We don't know, we're putting it in this budget because we may have to pay for it and get the stuff before the end of the year.
Correct.
Okay.
End of the budget year is
We
what
would
I'm
have to
saying.
take, put $300,000 in there if we don't have to have it till the next year.
End of budget year is what I'm saying, end of
Like
2024.
it's in this budget that we're talking about.
Okay,
It's gonna happen.
Sorry, not the end of this current year, sorry.
not the calendar year, but the budget year.
The budget
Right.
year.
I'm with you.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So the way that's working within your budget is I did put in some loan payments in there, but not till the very end of the year. So it's really gonna be fiscal year 2025 when you'll start to see, principal and interest for the full amount. That's how that would work. So the purchases would get done by the end of 2024 through the loan, and then you'll have a grace with the loan for a certain period of time, and then you'll start making payments, and we'll budget that full amount for 2025.
Okay, got it. I think I question?
How'd that price go down so much from 400 to 250? Is it something that you need to buy while it's where it's at before it goes up, or how does that work?
Yeah, probably. Well, there's always an opportunity of it increasing, depending on how the world turns. But
That was the original, it was.
that was the original quote that we received. And when we met with them this second time, we were shocked too when we found out that the price was.
Basically, it was a total different type of equipment, different setup.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
The hardware involved is a lot different. It's not the same that we originally quoted.
Because of the county's,
because the county's changing how they
okay,
were
so
gonna
it'd
operate
be,
and what they're gonna
you
do.
almost can't buy it till the county's firmed up a little.
Well, the county's actually paying for all of the radios and the portables.
I knew they're paying for
For the
radio.
police
Yeah.
and the fire.
They're just
They
not paying for the consoles.
They are expensive.
Yeah.
They're not cheap.
Have they already started purchasing those?
They have, the
Or
county
could they
has.
change their mind again?
No, they're not
No,
going
they're
to.
locked into
Okay.
the
They're
contract.
locked.
They're,
Our communication center will not go into the switch until their communication center starts going into the switch.
Right, I know we won't switch till they do, but do we need to lock this in?
I think that we're pretty good with the company that,
Okay.
that's who the
Yeah.
county is going with,
Okay,
we're in the
Yeah.
same umbrella
great.
with them.
I think we're safe for a little while. I'm not gonna say we can drag our feet, but I think we're safe for a little while.
Right.
And that's it for the police department.
So any other questions regarding police communications? Seem to have gotten through that. All right, my agenda then says fire department. So I guess I'll move to the fire department if that's okay with everybody.
Yes, sir.
What's the total police department budget?
Do what now?
Total police department budget.
The total police department budget, I don't know, because we played with it. So we really don't, I can tell you what it was, but it's not the same because we played with it.
it's gonna be
I have to look on different paper.
10,000
Summary.
less.
Total police
Yeah.
department.
You gave me 15, we added 25 of the loan, so.
1.642.
Where they're at.
Ballpark.
I got 1.674.
I subtracted your amount.
Oh, you're so smart. How did you do that?
It's numbers.
We don't even know what they are.
He did. He told you 38,000.
Okay. But who knows if it's really gonna wash out at that, you know. We did a couple of other tweaks.
That's a ballpark
besides just
number.
the
Yeah,
one.
we did a couple of
That's a
tweaks.
ballpark number.
It's about 1.6, we'll leave it at that. All right. Don't confuse me. I don't like doing it not in order of the book. It's driving me crazy here. Y'all know that, right? I'm gonna back up and pick it up in a minute. All right, so we're now to the fire department. Chief Stigall.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. There are a few changes in the fire department budget this year. To touch on a few of the talking points, we are looking at $1.70 an hour raise for all the firefighters across the board. This was in accordance with what was decided in last year's budget meeting. It was running off a wage comparison to other municipalities of our size. Give you an example, Chiefland currently is going to be raising their firefighters to just under $17 an hour, and this will put us at a little over $16 an hour starting pay. FRS is going up 5.8% this year. On the average over the last 5 years, it's gone up 0.77% per year. What we all tend to forget is 4 years ago it went down almost 1.5%. So, there's that. I will say this, FRS has helped with the continued longevity of our department. Most members of our department on the average are staying with us over 8 years now, 30% are over 10 years. It is the only extra benefit our firefighters have other than they get paid. We are looking at trying to hire a part-time administrative assistant. We've come in asking for 24 hours. We worked with the budget trying to cut that back to 16 hours. Give you a little history there. Several years ago, we had a part-time admin assistant in the fire department, Miss Judy, and she worked 30 hours a week. And we had her for several years, and Miss Gail was in the police department. She got hired as the evidence clerk. We moved a bunch of that money over when Miss Judy left to help with Miss Gail, and she picked up some duties with the fire department. Taking that money, and then we had Brooke who come in and started working, and we had a young lady named Sophie who come in and helped her for 16 to 20 hours a week for quite some time. And I don't know where the money went. It disappeared out of the budget last year, or year before last, out of the police budget. Anyway, what we're looking to do is bring somebody back in about 16 hours a week to help us out there. We're in a bind of trying to get everything done. That gives you the history on that. We are looking at a possible loan in the future here for the tanker renovation. We had done a lot of soul searching over this tanker. We brought in REV, our partners who rebuild most of our fire equipment from Ocala. They looked at it, they looked at the truck, we went through it head to toe, and they said they could do it for about $170,000. To give you an idea, and this is their recommendation, to give you an idea, to replace that truck today would be $500,000. So, you know, just sort of let that settle in for a second. This is a truck that is required. We do have to have it. It is our portable fire hydrant, so to speak. That's emphasizing what I'm saying about replacement.
You're welcome. I don't think I liked it.
We did discuss the possible assessment fees in this budget. We went back and looked at that, and one of the discussions was if we decide to move forward with it, we could pull that money possibly from reserves and then pay it back because you can charge for the cost of the assessment. So that would be the option going there. Going into the budget itself, you've seen the line items coming down. The major increases obviously are in salary and wages and benefits. The other increases are our travel. We decided we probably needed to up the travel a little bit because we were doing some travel and looking at new fire stations, new public safety facilities, and picking up fire trucks, and it went a little over that $1,000 that we generally have. Also, with fire prevention education, we moved it up 50%. That's the whole $500. Other than that, like I said, it's mainly salaries and wages were the increases. So I don't know if y'all have any questions for me or.
So tell me about what you say we promised last year. And yes, I really did ask you that question.
That was, you promised $1.70 an hour.
70 cents?
$1.70 an hour.
$1.70. Well, I'm seeing $2.
I'll take it. No, I'm jokingly, it was supposed to be $1.07. In all seriousness, $1.70.
And the others are $2.55 down the line.
Where are we at?
I'm looking at the staffing plan. The duty pay is what kills us. I can't find my paper. I've got so many papers up here now that I've got all these papers, that I can't find the ones I'm looking for. But there are 17,500 hours. I don't have that right in front of me, but.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it's saying.
That's what my memory tells me. I can't find it in front of my face. Of duty pay hours. That's a lot of hours.
Yep.
And when you're talking about, I know $2 and $1.70, whatever, doesn't sound like much, but it is if there's 17,500 hours. And it also affects the retirement. And the majority of the pay goes to the duty pay, because that's when they're in the station, right?
The duty pay is in the station.
On call in the station.
Yes.
Okay. And the call out is when they actually get there, so it bumps up when they go out.
When they come in off duty, that's call out.
Right.
Okay.
When they come in off duty, right. Because the duty pay goes up to $2, let me say. The firefighter 2 call out goes up to $2.55. The leader call out goes up $2.55. The fire officer pay call pay goes up $2.55. And the special events goes up $2 an hour. So from $14.94 to $16.94, that's $2. Or $16.64.
Time and a half.
That's $1.07. $2.70.
Do you want now?
$16.64 to $14.94 is $1.70.
Yeah, the duty pay is gone up $1.70, but your call out pay is at time and a half rate. $1.70 times time and a half.
So that's how.
$2.55.
That's where the $2.55 comes. Okay, so if we change it all to 171, is that what you said? 179?
170.
170.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. 174 is what I wrote down. Is that not
I'll
right?
take it.
Yeah, 174. 174 is what I wrote down.
$2 is a more round number.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of extra money. When
It
you're talking
is.
about 17,500 hours, Not to mention the call-outs and all that has to be added to it, but the majority of their pay is on the duty pay, which is $17,500. Any way you look at it. That's what it was last year, or this past year. And I don't know how much money that would save us, not a whole lot, but it's 30 cents, not quite, what is that, 26 cents an hour, times 17,500 hours.
I think what she's
I'm
saying is
confused.
the call
You're
out pay
confused?
is that time and a half.
The duty pay is only $1.70 difference. From $14.94 to $16.64 is $1.70.
Okay, so it is $1.70.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
only ones that are not because of the overtime effect are, like you mentioned, firefighter 2, fire team
Oh, I
leader,
couldn't find my note.
and fire officer. Those are the two that are the $2.55.
Okay.
The problem historically with the fire department is no matter what we budget, the number of incidences that it just keeps going up and up.
Right, and I know you got more money. You haven't mentioned that, but I know you did.
Yes.
Considerable more money. Don't know if it's in here or not.
$54,770.
More.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. All right, so is everybody else okay with it?
Yeah, you have to give it the $1.70. That should not even be discussed because that was promised to them last year.
Oh yeah, I'm not arguing the $1.70. I'm arguing what I thought was $2.55. But that's the overtime.
Unfortunately, it is what it is, but with that $54,000 or whatnot, would that offset that number?
Pretty close.
Okay.
So it's not really going up much, it's just washing out.
With the additional dollars, it'll help. It helps a lot. I still can't find it.
It's on page 9, Ms. Deborah. If you scroll over on the duty pay, it gives you the hours of 17,520.
And see, here's my problem, is I took my stuff out of my book so I could look at it, and now it's all mixed up.
Page
That's my problem. I can tell you, and none of it have pages on it. Whoop. That's page 7. Sorry. Oh, page 9.
So the third line down is your duty pay when you go over to the total hours.
Other than that, I think the only other question I had was about the job description for the administrative assistant, but you've explained that. And again, I would state the number of hours for the duty pay because we did add the other evening hours last year as well.
Yes.
And that's where all those hours came from.
Yeah, was it last year? Yes, that's right.
All right, anybody else got anything for the fire department? Yes, sir.
The administrative assistant that you want to bring in, is it going to be just for police and fire, or just fire?
No, sir. We'll be able to use them on both sides. They'll work mainly in the fire department, but what I would like for that person to do, even though they'll come out of the fire department budget, is they'll work directly at the direction of Miss Willis. If she needs help on a project, that person will be there to help her, and she will be directing them because she does most of our stuff now anyway. So this is more of getting somebody in there to help her help us.
Right. Okay, cool.
If that makes sense.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's one person on here that didn't get a raise, fire one?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the reason?
We don't pay them hourly.
They get so much per call out.
That's why it's called call pay.
Because they're truly volunteers.
They are the last of the Mohicans.
Last of the true volunteers. Mr. Terry.
What's the total budget for the fire department? And are they the only department that's on Florida retirement system?
We have 3 different retirement plans in the city of Williston. We have the police 185, we have the general employees, and we have the Florida State Retirement for the fire department. That's why they're all a different rate of increase, because those particular entities all raised it differently.
Mr. Terry, if I may, when we looked at the retirement for the fire department, we went through the League of Cities, and we looked at the special risk through the League of Cities. They would not give a retirement for a part-time employee, and FRS would. That's why we went in that direction.
So what's the total budget?
1.024.
The total budget. All right, somebody got it?
102421.
Yep.
210.
1024210.
And that's including what, 160?
That's actually a decrease from last year, believe it or not.
Yeah. And that's including 160,000 for the capital outlay.
Right. Okay. All right. I don't really know why the next one says community redevelopment, because it's not even in the general fund. So y'all see how this is driving me crazy?
I've got a couple budgets, man.
I know, but I don't like doing it this way.
We can start with anything you want. You want to start with the CRA? Get that out of the way.
It's not in the general fund. Why are we in the general fund and now we're going out of the general fund?
Okay, we can start with
All right, let's do the CRA.
planning and zoning. You want to do that?
Let's do the CRA.
Okay, we'll do the CRA.
I'm gonna forget what I've done and what I haven't done, it's my problem. Go ahead.
The only thing you're going to really see different in the CRA this year is that we're going after a loan. We talked about this loan about 12 months ago, so this wasn't really anything new. This is to finish the construction of the parking lot at Block 12. Because it's been over a year before we finally got the loan documents almost finalized, we have a little bit more money in the budget than we did when we started that process. So we're probably not going to use that entire loan, but we're going to take it right now until we get our RFPs out, because we're not sure what this construction is going to actually cost. And then it's up to the CRA whether they want to use some of that money for a different project or whether they want to just not take it. Other than that, you'll see we had an 18% increase in our TIFs. That's just from, property values increasing and a couple of new buildings over at the old high school. Other than that, this is pretty much what you guys see every year.
Any questions for Miss Laura? Mr. Robinson?
Any considerations for restrooms over there?
Yes, sir. They're in the plans now for the new parking lot. We're gonna put restrooms and a little storage unit so that we can put some tables and things in case people we want to use them or they want to be rented out. And then we also did put in that grant for the charging stations. Remember you asked me to do that?
Yes.
It's in, and we should know something. We were supposed to know something by the end of July. So I've been getting a lot of calls by the different contractors asking if we heard anything yet. They haven't heard anything yet either. I think they got a lot of applications, a lot more than they were planning.
Probably. Okay, anything else? Anybody? Okay, that was easy. All right, I guess we'll do the airport.
Oh no, I've got more.
I got more?
Oh yeah.
You got more for the CRA?
Oh no, I've got more for the general funds.
Oh, well, on my agenda, it goes to the airport. That's what's driving me crazy. All right, so let's go to the airport. We're gonna follow the agenda, we're following the agenda. I just can't figure out.
You're just getting all together. That's okay.
Where the agenda's going, that's exactly right. Mr. Stever, go ahead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can everybody hear me? I need to get a little closer.
Not quite.
How about now?
That's perfect.
All right. So I was able to send out a little, budget summary to all the council members and the mayor. If anybody would like a copy, I can make some copies and hand them out. But essentially, it lays out some of the changes or budget highlights for the airport that Stephen has already alluded to in some cases. Essentially, the biggest part of the budget increase for the airport is going to be grant-based. A lot of you know that the new terminal building is on its way. We also have a hangar project coming up as well. Those two projects alone come out to about $4.5 million. 100% grant funded through the state and through the feds. So the vast majority of our budget increases has come from those grants and just budgeting them properly. That works. Sorry, my phone was too close to the
I was
microphone.
trying to say, is that you or me?
I think it was me. So let me see where we want to start. Some of the accomplishments that we've had at the airport. We've had several new hangars starting to go up, and several new businesses come to the airport. One of which was Cypress Aircraft Sales. They're a Citation jet sales business, they're starting to put together a maintenance shop on the airfield as well for Citation maintenance or jet maintenance. So that's a really big win for us. It's brought in a lot of fuel sales, as well as a lot more awareness to the airport from outside agencies. So that's been a really big win. Another one, we coordinated with just about every other department in the city and some outside agencies to get electrical power to the animal shelter. I thought that was a really big win for everybody, especially for the airport, since it's on airport property. We've hosted a lot of community outreach events, like the EAA Young Eagles events. We've actually got 3 on the schedule for the fall already.
Wow.
And Ruth Ann over at the Ocala EAA chapter has been just absolutely amazing to work with. Since she's taken over the program, it's went from my staff being completely involved in running an EAA Young Eagles event to we just sit back and field airplanes now. So they've really gotten their stuff together, and it's an amazing program, and we like to support it. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Young Eagles program, what it is it's a program that brings kids in from ages 8 to 18. They bring them in, give them a 1-hour ground school class, and then take them up for a 20-minute flight at no cost to the student. So if you're interested in somebody or know somebody who would be interested in that, sign-ups are online. You can just go to Google EAA Young Eagles. They have them all over the state all the time. But we try to host at least 4 to 6 a year. So we're really happy to be able to increase those numbers and have such a successful Young Eagles program at the airport. As far as other changes to the airport, some of our changes in staffing are not huge, just reallocating some positions here and there. So right now we have a total head count of 9. We currently have 2 open part-time positions. What we're doing in the upcoming year is consolidating 3 of those part-times to be 1 full-time. Our intent is to develop one of these positions into a weekend lead position. We're taking baby steps. I haven't really talked to Crystal, so this is the first time that she's hearing about it, but that's our intent with doing that. It was brought to my attention that one of the pay increases that we had was kind of minor. That wasn't the paradigm that we were looking at it with, but when it was approached from a different paradigm, it was woefully low. So I would ask Stephen that if we could increase Dan Jones's salary up to at least, let's say, $15.50, which I think that would be doable in our budget. And if we can't, we can raise fuel prices a little bit to make it work. Dan has been an integral part of the airport. He's been there for 15 years. He's been a backbone of training new hires on the weekends, and he's done a lot of work. When it was brought to my attention this way that it was kind of a minor raise, I was like, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. We'll definitely help him out there. So if we can make that happen, Steve, that'd be great.
Wasn't me, I promise.
No, it was not Miss Jones. I will vouch for that. It was not Miss Jones.
Yeah, I'll make the adjustment.
Thank you, sir. Moving past that sheet, before we go line by line, is there anything that anybody would like to speak about for the airport?
My question is actually from Mr. Bloom. and where it talks about the note payment, the note repayment. How much is left on that?
I believe it's about, 70K.
Why? What?
What is it, or?
Both.
Well, I stopped making the payment because.
I mean, it was a tractor.
Wow.
15, 20 years ago.
There was, I mean, that's what it was. There's no history as to what that loan really was. I can't find anything anywhere.
Well, that's why I can't believe it's still here.
Yeah, well, because we'd have to bring it in front of the commission to write it off.
Okay, so let's do that. Because it's at least 15 to 20 years ago.
Oh.
Probably more than that.
Yeah, more than that because.
And it was a batwing mower. I know exactly what it was because I was chairman of the airport committee at the time and on the council. And it was a batwing mower that actually didn't end up at the airport. It ended up somewhere else. We won't even get into that.
Okay, that's actually new because it was being said that it was something to do with the well. And that was part of what was.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
But I've heard like 5 or 6 different stories.
Well,
so that's
John,
kind of why Stephen and I kind of
Mr.
just
Bishop, when he returns, can help us with that story. If it has to do with the well, he would know that as well. So let's get together with it and try to figure it out. And we can bring that back to the council, not at the budget hearing so much, but let's figure it out. Because it's been on here for 20, 25 years, and I just can't believe it's still that amount of money. And we put it in here every year.
We do, but I stopped making the payment because there was too much uncertainty as to what it was.
Yeah.
If
And
there
that,
was anything that was
to Stephen's credit, that wasn't necessarily his call.
Right.
You know, I made the question, and then we started to peel back some layers on an onion that didn't really have a bottom.
Yeah.
So you know, we both
And I know
kind of made
we've
the
actually
decision.
tried-
Let's you know kind of put it in a holding pattern, and now we're in like the 2nd or 3rd year that it's been in a holding pattern.
Right. Okay. Let's
so I think it's just
figure
something
that
I forgot
out.
about.
That's really the only question I have for the airport, as he says in his memo, and I have the extra copy of that memo if you'd like it, Mr. Witt. He does say that the airport is a freestanding entity, that it generates its own funds, and it has to use those funds at the airport. So he's pretty much, it's not that he's oblivious to us, but
self-contained is what I was.
thank you so much. I appreciate the word. Yes. So I'm fine with this budget. Anybody else got any questions? I'm seeing shakings of head, so I think we're ready to make. Now, before we go to the utility fund, which is what's sitting here next, I'm going to go back to the beginning. I know y'all hate me, right? We got to get through this. So let's go to the general fund. And in the general fund, we can skip the first couple of pages. If we start on page 20, under the general fund tab, very simply, there you see the city council, which includes the mayor. Pretty cut and dry. They increased the travel, and the insurance had to go up as well. And that's, I don't know what kind of insurance that is. Probably Arizona emissions, maybe here. Part of general liability. What kind of insurance?
Yeah, it's part of the general liability. It's just an allocated share.
Okay. So anybody have any questions on the city council portion of the agenda?
Yeah, I have a stupid question.
No question is stupid. You've heard mine tonight,
Are
haven't
we
you?
covered by workers' compensation?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Well, we got a line item there.
For workman's comp?
Yeah.
I mean, I see insurance.
Payroll taxes, workers' compensation.
Yeah, we put an allocation in there. We'd have to go back to the
Oh, I see it.
policy.
Sorry.
We've had that discussion before. I
Yes,
believe.
I've had the discussion a number of times, and I've got different answers every time.
Yeah.
I mean, we are employees, but we're not employees because they
We
won't
are
let us.
employees, but we're not employees.
They won't let us buy benefits, let's put it that way. 'Cause I've
Yeah,
tried that
we'll have
too.
to take a note to go back to that one again. I don't remember what the verdict was on that.
What a good question for HR.
I dropped that line item.
And at the end of the day,
Tag, you it.
A lot of the workers' comp is based on total payroll. So that might be why we
You're part
are.
of it.
Yeah, you're part of the total payroll.
That's probably what it is.
But it's, you know, just an allocation. Let's move somewhere else.
That's a very small allocation. The next page, page 21, is city manager. You see the allocations there. The salary remained the same because we have not, well, did it remain the same? No, it says it's the 0%, but it did go up a little
Yeah,
bit.
Would you like me to speak to that?
A whole few cents. Yes, sir, please.
Okay, so obviously my salary is based on contract.
Yes.
So if you review my contract, it's, I do receive an annual evaluation, that's due on the date that my contract was signed, although it's not, believe it or not, it's not attached to any pay increase. It does say though that compensation is to be approved in another paragraph of the contract by the city council based on resolution by a vote of 3-2.
Right.
So I would say at any time that y'all could, change my salary as long as it doesn't go down.
We usually do a budget amendment for you and the city clerk once that happens.
Yes, ma'am. I'm good, however y'all wanna do it. I did not put a figure in there. If y'all would prefer to wait till my evaluation in December, I'm okay with that. It's totally up to y'all.
So anticipating that there could be one, there's a contingency line at the bottom of the general fund that would be able to cover that.
Okay,
You can either move it now or, leave it there and move it later.
I'd leave it because we don't know what it's gonna be. It'll be the same for the city clerk once we get there. Because there are 2 charter officers that we have to do later.
The city clerk does have.
I saw that.
But I think that's more for certifications.
Okay.
Than it is for an increase, but I'll look.
It was $1.
I'll look at
Yes.
the city clerk.
When we get
address
there.
that.
Question, is the city clerk is contract
No,
employee?
no, but because she's a charter officer, her evaluation is different. We are her we are her direct supervisor. We.
You.
Us is, we's guys. That's why we do her evaluation.
So the city manager is under contract,
Yes.
for how many years? How long? Is there a
2
year?
weeks.
2 weeks. Every
2
2
weeks.
weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, Terry.
It better be 10 or 20 for all I care.
How long is this contract good for?
It's for,
There's no-
Ms. Hines, take that back, it's for 4 years. But my contract can be renegotiated at any time when both sides agree. And if you have not seen a copy of my contract, I will forward you one.
It's been a while since I've read it.
I have not, please.
Yes, ma'am, I will. Oh, absolutely. But it is for a 4-year period. I think we signed it in December of last year.
Okay. Any questions for the city manager regarding his portion of the budget? Pretty cut and dry. Okay. Check mark. The next one is the city clerk. You do have something on your desk tonight from Miss Latricia. Somewhere. I can find it. There's so much on my desk, I don't know what I got.
No, nothing from me.
Well, there's nothing, no, excuse me, it's HR. I'm sorry.
She took mercy on us.
She did take mercy on us. Okay, so you see Latricia's. Of course, the retirement went crazy because of the retirement, not because of her. Training and seminars went up just a hair, from 700 to 1,000. That's about it. Any questions for the city clerk?
The salary and wages show 17.2% increase.
I think it's $1. Was it $1? It does show 17.2. I don't really know why.
I think she's had at least 2 this year.
Yeah, the evaluation.
Well,
If I'm not mistaken, and there was $1 for each one.
Yeah, so keep in mind that percentage you're looking at
It's the dollars if
budget
you're
to budget.
Right.
And yes, there has been during the course of the year increases. That's why it looks like that. But if you look at the salary plan, there's only a $1 adjustment in there from the current rate to next year's proposed rate.
All right, good.
Question. What is safety pay? What's the safety pay?
Every employee gets safety pay. The part-timer gets half the dollar amount than a full-time employee. And they have to complete their safety training, is that right?
No, ma'am.
No. Ms. Crystal, if you want to help us with that, or Latricia one?
No.
whoever it is that does the safety.
What is safety pay?
It's like a bonus.
Safety pay is if you don't have a claim.
If you don't have a workers' comp claim, that is, that's your
If that
fault.
particular person doesn't do it, or the
Right,
whole
if it's an
place.
accident.
Or
If
the
you do not,
person.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. And that's basically it, if you do not have a workers' comp claim.
Okay.
No one in the department has it?
Or just that individual person.
Individual.
Okay.
So each individual gets safety pay, and if someone else has an accident, it doesn't affect your safety pay.
Correct.
That's right, and it's one amount if you're full-time and another amount if you're part-time.
No.
No.
No,
No, not anymore?
no,
Used
it's
to
if
be.
you drive a vehicle, it's
50.
one amount, and
It's
then if
50,
you
and if
are
you're in
an
the
office
office, it's
personnel, it's
25.
25.
Okay. All right, thank you for that clarification. All right, I knew the amounts were different because I see them on the checks. I thought that they were part-time and full-time. So,
It's based on
thank
that,
you for
if
that.
you operate a vehicle or not.
Any other questions on the city clerk?
Just one.
Yes, sir.
I'm seeing other pay projected $5.
That's for this year, so there must be something out there, or either that or it's just a typo.
It just looks funny.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it and see what's going in there.
It just looks weird.
All right, can we put a check mark on that one? All right, next, the one at the bottom of that same page is legal services. I assume we've read the contract and there's no increase this year? In some years there are? No?
I haven't seen anything.
Thought it was built into the contract.
For legal?
Uh-huh.
I'll make a note to.
Make sure you look at that, because I think it's built into the contract. I think it goes up just a hair each year.
Can I get a copy of that? Thank you.
Anybody else want a copy of the legal contract?
I'll send it to everyone.
Yes, that would be great. All right, so we through with the legal.
What's the, personal services other legal? I noticed where that's kind of fluctuated the last couple of years. Could that be where the increase?
That's where we, sometimes reach out to
A different attorney. Like a labor attorney or a HR attorney, a different attorney under the legal services. And sometimes we have a use for that and sometimes we don't. But we put it there just in case, and they charge by the hour. They're not contract. Any other legal questions? Okay, check mark.
Madam President?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we go ahead and take our break now? Please.
At 7 o'clock? Only been here an hour and a half.
Food's been here too.
Are you ready to get the food here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Y'all ready for a break?
Let's do it.
All right, we're gonna start back at administration on page 23.